History made here in Washington. The televised hearings begin. The drama and the stakes inside that room. The first two witnesses and the new evidence, the alleged phone call involving President Trump we did not know about. And the person who heard that call already summoned to Capitol Hill. President Trump's response just in tonight. Our team is standing by live. The other news this Wednesday night, the horror unfolding, the deadly fire in this brutal cold. A firefighter killed after saving two other firefighters. Hundreds of records broken, up to 2 feet of snow in some places. And now, what's coming next? The American teacher killed, what authorities found in her apartment, saying her hands and feet were tied. Investigators now on the scene in the Dominican Republic. The state of emergency in one of the world's most famous cities. The deadly flooding in Venice, the historic city underwater tonight. The investigation into 9 student deaths at the same university. What's behind it? Your health tonight and the major finding, the watch that can detect abnormal heartbeats while you're awake and while you're sleeping. Is it saving lives? The major headline involving quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Is he about to make his NFL comeback? Which teams will be watching him? And America Strong tonight, the surprise gift, the moment she opens that front door. And you'll see it right here.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, reporting tonight from Washington.
And good evening from the nation's capital tonight, and we are here because of this moment in history, the start of impeachment hearings for President Trump. Only the 4th president to face these proceedings. Millions watching on television today, and there was a surprise, new evidence not heard before. 2 witnesses, 2 career diplomats, chosen by the Democrats as the first to appear here. And that unexpected revelation from the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, a West Point grad, a Vietnam vet. Today, he revealed what a staff member told him about a phone call President Trump allegedly made the day after that infamous call with the new president of Ukraine. That next day, the president, the alleged call, and what the president was asking about. Now that staff member who says he heard the president has already been called to testify here on the Hill. ABC's Mary Bruce leads us off from Washington tonight.
After weeks of questioning behind closed doors, today the impeachment battle burst into the open, with millions of Americans watching.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Democrats calling their star witness, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, a Vietnam veteran. He's served every U.S. president since Ronald Reagan. Taylor testified he had a, quote, clear understanding that Ukraine would not receive nearly $400 million in military aid until they publicly announced an investigation into President Trump's political rivals.
To withhold that assistance for no good reason other than help with the political campaign made no sense. It was counterproductive to all of what we had been trying to do. It was illogical. It could not be explained. It was crazy.
Taylor brought with him new information, raising new questions about the president's personal involvement. Taylor indicating that Trump himself was checking in to see whether Ukraine was launching those investigations. Taylor explaining he recently learned that just one day after the president's phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky, Trump followed up with the U.S. ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, the Trump mega donor who had become his point man on Ukraine.
In the presence of my staff at a restaurant, Ambassador Sondland called President Trump and told him of his meetings in Kyiv. The member of my staff could hear President Trump on the phone asking Ambassador Sondland about the investigations. Ambassador Sondland told President Trump the Ukrainians were ready to move forward. Following the call with President Trump, the member of my staff asked Ambassador Sondland what President Trump thought about Ukraine. Ambassador Sondland responded that President Trump cares more about the investigations of Biden.
Chairman Schiff seizing on those words.
Your staff member could overhear Mr. Sondland on the phone, could overhear the president on the phone with Mr. Sondland, is that right?
That's correct.
So the president must have been speaking loud enough on the phone. This was a cell phone, I take it?
It was a cell phone.
The president must have been speaking loud enough for your staff member to be able to overhear this?
It was.
And I think you said that after the call, when your staff asked Ambassador Sondland what President Trump thought of Ukraine, his response was that President Trump cares more about the investigations of Biden. Is that right?
And Burisma, yes, sir.
Taylor testified that Sondland was part of an irregular channel of diplomacy led by the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Republicans pressing him.
In fairness, this irregular channel of diplomacy, it's not as outlandish as it could be. Is that correct?
It's not as outlandish as it could be. Yeah, I agree, Mr.
Taylor was joined at the witness table by top State Department official George Kent. Both men testifying Giuliani's shadow diplomacy was running counter to America's national interest.
What interest do you believe he was promoting, Mr. Kent?
I believe he was looking to dig up political dirt against a potential rival in the next election cycle.
Ambassador Taylor, what interest do you believe he was promoting?
I agree with Mr. Kent.
Eager to defend the president, Republicans repeatedly noted that Taylor and Kent never spoke to the president directly, that they were relying on secondhand information.
Ambassador, you weren't on the call, were you? The president, you didn't listen on President Trump's call and President Zelensky's call?
I did not.
You've never talked with Chief of Staff Mulvaney?
I never did.
You never met the president?
That's correct.
You had 3 meetings again with Zelensky and it didn't come up.
And 2 of those they had never heard about, as far as I know.
And President
There was no reason for it to come
President
up.
Zelensky never made an announcement. This is what I can't believe. And you're their star witness. You're their first witness.
Republicans focused on the end result, that the White House did release the hold on that military aid, saying it shows Trump did nothing wrong.
The security assistance was provided to Ukraine without the Ukrainians having done any of the things they were supposedly being blackmailed to do.
But Democrats say the money only started to flow after Congress launched an investigation and the whistleblower filed that complaint.
Mary Bruce with us live on the Hill tonight, watching with us all day long here. And Mary, let's get back to that unexpected testimony you just reported on here today. The top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, testifying one of his staffers overheard a phone call the day after that controversial call with the president of Ukraine. And that staffer saying he could hear President Trump through the phone. He's now been called to testify, the staffer?
His name is David Holmes, and he is expected to be here on Friday answering questions behind closed doors. He is likely to be grilled about what he overheard on that conversation. And David, lawmakers are also likely to want to talk to the man that the president was allegedly talking to, Gordon Sondland. He never mentioned that conversation to lawmakers, and he has revised his testimony once before. The question now, will he revise it again when he testifies here publicly next Wednesday? David.
We'll be here. Mary Bruce with us all day long. Mary, thank you. And just a short time ago, President Trump responding to what unfolded here today in Washington. The president welcoming the president of Turkey to the White House just weeks after that sudden decision to pull U.S. troops out of a key part of Syria. Turkey then moving in on U.S. allies, the Kurds in Syria. But tonight, the president answering questions on impeachment, denying that claim of a phone call the day after his call with Ukraine's president. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl across town at the White House tonight.
As the first open impeachment hearing unfolded on Capitol Hill, the president insisted he wasn't paying attention.
I'm too busy to watch it. It's a witch hunt. It's a hoax.
After it was over, the president, in a joint news conference with the president of Turkey, was asked what he thought of the hearing.
I hear it's a joke. I haven't watched for 1 minute because I've been with the president, which is much more important as far as I'm concerned. This is a sham and shouldn't be allowed.
He was also asked about Bill Taylor's new claim that one of his aides overheard President Trump asking Ambassador Gordon Sondland about the investigations.
I know nothing about that. First time I've heard it. The one thing I've seen that Sondland said was that he did speak to me for a brief moment, and I said no quid pro quo under any circumstances, and that's true. The other, I've never heard this.
Do you recall having a conversation with Sondland?
I don't recall. No, not at all. Not even a little bit.
So let's get to John Karl live at the White House tonight. And John, let's go bigger picture here, because as these televised impeachment hearings begin, this White House knows what they're dealing with: a Democratic House, a Republican Senate, and we're now less than a year from Election Day. So what are your sources telling you? What are they bracing for?
Well, the bottom line from the White House perspective is that nothing changed today. House Democrats are still on the road to impeaching the president, but not a single Republican has shown any indication of breaking ranks. That means, David, without significant, dramatic changes, there's no way the Senate would vote to remove the president, and his fate ultimately will be determined by voters next November.
All right, John Karl live at the White House tonight. John, thank you. And Friday morning, another key witness, the former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, who was removed from her post. She will testify before the American people Friday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, right here on ABC. But we do move on tonight to other news and the record-breaking cold and the horror that played out in Massachusetts. A devastating fire in the middle of all this. The heartbreaking toll tonight, a firefighter was killed just after he saved 2 other firefighters as they fought the flames amid this bitter cold. ABC's Gio Benitez tonight from Worcester, Massachusetts.
Tonight, the deadly fire breaking out in freezing weather. Firefighters in Worcester, Massachusetts rushing in to battle a 4-alarm blaze.
People still inside and also a baby on the 3rd floor.
Record cold temperatures dropping into the teens, wind chills below 0. Heavy fire conditions trapping members of Ladder 5. 4 firefighters taken to the hospital. Tragically, Lieutenant Jason Menard did not survive.
Lieutenant Menard heroically and selflessly saved his crew.
This firefighter saluting as the fire department lowered its flag to half staff. First responders paying tribute as the procession carrying Lieutenant Menard's body passed by. He leaves behind a wife and 3 children.
As always, our Worcester firefighters will stand by that family.
And just hours after that fire, the department on the scene of another blaze. And David, temperatures here will be in the teens again tonight. Meanwhile, the firefighters union says Lieutenant Menard and his family had planned to go on vacation this morning. Instead, they're now planning a hero's send-off. David.
All right, we're thinking about the community of Worcester tonight, Gio. Thank you. And let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Ginger Zee, because there is relief coming and not a moment too soon. Ginger?
David, you know it's cold when New Orleans, Gulfport, Mississippi, Baton Rouge, all among the cities that were colder this morning than they were all of last winter. And it's still going to be chilly tomorrow morning. These are wind chills for your Thursday morning. It'll still feel like 9 in Green Bay, 16 Chicago, 25 Nashville, and 30 New York City. But by Friday, things really warm up. Above freezing in Chicago and Detroit. New York City, 52, 55 for Washington, D.C. Warmer than average along the East Coast going into next week, David.
Ginger Zee with us again tonight. Ginger, thank you. We're going to turn next tonight to the American teacher killed in the Dominican Republic. She was found dead in her apartment, her hands and feet tied. And tonight, authorities on what was missing from her home. Here's ABC's Victor Oquendo.
Tonight, authorities in the Dominican Republic investigating the gruesome murder of American teacher Patricia Ann Anton. The 63-year-old was found strangled inside her apartment on the north side of the island Tuesday. Police say her hands and feet were tied up. Her laptop, TV, phone, and other items stolen. Anton worked at Tres Mariposas Montessori for the past 6 years, the school saying they are completely heartbroken over the loss. Her brother-in-law writing on Facebook, she dedicated her life to helping children. Her death is a tragedy.
David, no arrests have been made. Tonight, Dominican officials are urging anyone with any information to come forward. David?
Victor Oquendo, thank you. Overseas tonight to a remarkable and alarming scene playing out in Venice. The worst flooding there in more than 50 years. People wading through the water across St. Mark's Square, one of the most popular tourist spots in the world. Tonight, the mayor declaring a state of emergency now for what he's calling the apocalyptic rising water there. Here's ABC's Maggie Rulli tonight.
Tonight, tourist suitcases floating away in Venice. The mayor declaring a state of emergency, saying the city is on its knees. Famous landmarks like 1,200-year-old St. Mark's Basilica inundated, water flowing through the church.
My life, this was the first time like this.
St. Mark's Square, now a swimming pool. Hotels and shops turned into canals as water rushes through buildings.
All the clothing, all the things in the shops, in the grocery stores, it was all very devastating.
The floods have caused at least 2 deaths, and Venice's mayor is blaming the worst flood his city has seen in more than 50 years on climate change. Now, Venice is used to seasonal flooding, but this one was the second highest in recorded history. David, damages are expected to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. David?
Just incredible images tonight, Maggie. Thank you. And back here at home now into a major headline involving a quarterback sidelined after his protests. But now quarterback Colin Kaepernick may be returning to the NFL. He's expected to work out in front of several teams in Atlanta this weekend. He hasn't played in nearly 3 years. And now the Lions, the Dolphins, the Falcons among the teams who say they'll be watching. Here's ABC's Paula Ferris.
Kaepernick shows some poison. Tonight, the NFL's stunning announcement that former San Francisco quarterback Colin Kaepernick will work out for teams on Saturday, and several teams announcing they'll attend.
I would say, anytime we can add a good player, we try to do that.
Kaepernick, who hasn't played in nearly 3 years, surprised by the news,